Welcome to another edition of Lakeville's City Council Wrap-Up. During this program, we will highlight the agenda items presented to the Lakeville City Council at their February 3rd, 2014 meeting. First highlighted item on the agenda is item number 5B, Public Works Monthly Report. And to give the background information on this agenda item is Public Works Director Chris Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As always, my pleasure to be here with you this evening presenting the January 2014 monthly report for the Public Works Department. And this month's monthly report is rather brief because a majority of our time in the Public Works Department was spent with snow and ice control and the cold temperatures. So I'll just walk the council through some of those items. First off, of course, the snow and cold temperatures. Of course, I already mentioned the month was primarily dedicated to our snow and ice control operations. Not only were public works staff out doing that, but of course parks maintenance staff were out roughly every other day throughout the month of January to deal with these snow events. In all, we had about 17 snow events over the 31 days in January, and over 18 of those days had lows below zero, which has been tough on equipment and staff both. We spent approximately 1,800 hours on snow plowing and applied nearly 1,400 tons of de-icing chemical to the city's streets. Many of the snow events, as you know, have been fairly straightforward, and crews were able to go out, plow all the routes, clean up after the event, and be done with it until the next day or a couple days later. However, the last few events in the month, we were met with very cold temperatures, of course, and blowing and drifting snow, which made tackling all those snow drifts and all the other things very difficult for staff and the equipment, as well as packed ice and snow that came along with that. Downtown snow removal. Of course, the amount of snow that we received throughout January was fairly significant, and especially over the last 10 days, which required our crews to do a special downtown snow removal cleanup. That's our second time now this year we've needed to do that, or in this snow season. Normally what occurs is our staff plows all the snow to the center of Holyoke. We do the downtown cleanup between 210th Street and 202nd Street. So we typically put it all in a windrow or a road down the center of the street. And when you utilize one of our large snow blowers to blow it into the back of trucks, that makes it fairly quick and easy and rapidly kind of cycles through all of our trucks. However, on the cleanup last week, our large snow blower went down with a malfunction right as the crews were starting with it. So you can see in these pictures, at least the one on the upper right-hand corner of the screen and even the lower right-hand corner, we had to switch our operation up a little bit and utilize a front-end loader to just manually load each of the trucks, which did take a little bit longer, but was still just as effective. The downtown cleanup, as I mentioned, between 210th and 202nd on Holyoke takes about 4 hours total, and typically we start somewhere around 2 or 3 in the morning so that we're completed before traffic starts to increase and businesses start to open in the downtown area. And the last slide for you this evening is, of course, dealing with intersections. And there the large snowblower is in the photos, and it's working, as you can see. Of course, the accumulation of snow and the subsequent plowing also creates problems as large snow piles accumulate at intersections, which sometimes poses problems for sight lines of motorists. So in those cases, our large snowblower, as seen in the pictures, has been a tremendous asset. It truly has in removing the hardened snow piles from around the turn lanes and at intersections. Our Streets Division goal, as always, with any snow and ice control is to provide the safest and best possible driving surfaces to motorists. And that does conclude the monthly report for January 2014. I did say it would be brief. Be happy to answer any questions.
Next highlighted item on the agenda is item number 5C, Economic Development 2013 Annual Report. And to give the background information on this agenda item is Economic Development Director Dave Olson.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Given the light agenda tonight, Mr. Milkey indicated I had at least 45 minutes for my presentation, so I hope to take advantage. No, seriously.
I believe that was 4.5.
Oh, 4.5. I'm sorry. I forgot the decimal point. It's a pleasure to be before the council tonight, and it's a pleasure to present this report after a few years in recent history where it wasn't as pleasant to be up here and producing and presenting the annual report for economic development. But we always start out with the building permit valuations, and 2013 was obviously a good year, and the numbers are there, the $149 million in total building permit valuation compared to $129 million the year before, so an increase of $20 million, and a majority of that was in the residential development and permits that we issued, but we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. We always point out also the commercial industrial side of the equation, and as you can see, of that $149 million, the commercial was less than 10%, but it was consistent with where we've been the last few years. 2011 numbers were skewed a little bit because one project on a commercial industrial can really kind of skew the numbers, and 2011 was the year we issued the Walmart store permit, so that's why that number, but you go back even further, and obviously it's increased several fold over where we were back in 2010. I know there are a couple of questions raised in the presentation that was sent out today, and I'll try and clarify a little bit between units and permits. They're both reported by most organizations, including the Builders Association, but in 2013, we issued building permits for 398 residential units, and that compared to 393 the year previous. And of that 398 units, permits issued in 2013, 370 of those were for single-family homes compared to 279 the year previous. And we'll see in just another slide here, so the comparison, but and I made a note here on the 398, the 370 of those were single family as indicated on the slide, but then the other remaining 28 were townhome permits. However, in 2012, the number was 393, and of that total, there were a little bit more variety. There were 279 single family, as the slide shows, 13 townhome units, and then 2012 was when we issued the permit for Kingsley Shores, and that had 101 units. So that's, again, what kind of like on the commercial industrial side, one large multifamily apartment type project can kind of skew the numbers for a given year. Here's how we compared across, and these were the top 5 cities as reported by BATSI, Builders Association of the Twin Cities, and as council I think has heard, Lakeville had the distinction on the permit side, and not necessarily the case on the unit side, the highest number in the Twin Cities metropolitan area at 398. That's not the exact number that was reported by BATSI, and our numbers are always differ by just a few from the BATSI numbers, but we issued based on our reports and the data that we have, and so that's why the source indicates both BATSI and the city of Lakeville, but the 398 number is predominantly the single family, made up by the 370, and you can see where Woodbury and Blaine and Plymouth and Maple Grove. But the interesting thing that will show up on the next slide is where Plymouth and Maple Grove then show up on the number of units, and Maple Grove jumps all the way up to 608, and I did a little checking. They've approved in the last couple of years multifamily projects totaling over 800 units, and so they issued permits for about 400 of those in 2013, and that's where they jumped from a little over 200 to over 600. And the same in Plymouth. They had one large multifamily senior project, not unlike what we had in 2012. Again, that jumps you ahead in terms of the total number of units, and then Woodbury and Blaine making up the balance. And there is a side note, and I hesitate because it really screws up my graph, but the city of Minneapolis issued permits for 3,153 units in 2013, and actually I looked back, that number was very similar to what they did in 2012. So apartment and condo, and primarily apartment, my understanding, development in Minneapolis is still going strong. We also try and track, and have now for a number of years, the permits and break it down by school district, and I should qualify, these are just the single family numbers. So ISD 192, which is Farmington, had 9 permits. There are not a lot of active subdivisions right now in that part of Lakeville. ISD 194, Lakeville Schools at 219 of the total, and ISD 196 had 170, which is up considerably. I didn't put it on the slide, but last year those numbers, just for comparison, were 15 for Farmington, 67 for, 184 for Lakeville, and 74 for 196. And primarily, and the map here will show, there are a couple of very active developments right now in 196 and up on that Pilot Knob 170th area, and Spirit Branch and Farm being the one in the farthest upper right corner. That development has gotten very active again, obviously with the uptick in residential construction. But then on the west side of Pilot Knob, there are a couple developments over there. Tullamore and Jamesdale Estates are both very active developments too, and so that's what pushed the numbers up for 196. And then you can see where the rest fall in the balance of the city, or the majority of the city, which is District 194, and there's a big cluster, obviously, in the area of Holyoke and 190th with Crescent Ridge and Donley Farm, and the new development just north of Donley Farm by Lennar, and then kind of sprinkled out through the rest of the city as well. The other, in addition to permit activity, obviously the number of approved final plats that came through this council was up again in 2013. The number for, again, and almost all the plats we approved last year were single-family plats, 397, and that's final plats approved compared to 348 the previous year. A note that's not on the slide, however, is, and council is going to, and as well as planning commission is going to continue to be busy reviewing plats. Mr. Morey and Mr. Petrie's staff are currently reviewing sketch plans, preliminary plats, and final plats totaling 1,353 single-family lots and 45 townhome lots. So we're going to continue to see plat activity, it appears anyway, through this year and probably going on into next. Kingsley Shores was alluded to as the multifamily permit project that was issued in 2012, finished, in 2012, and finished in the fall of 2013. It's a nice shot. This was right before the landscaping was completed. We just went out and did a out and about interview. Adam Keenberger, my staff, was out there a few weeks ago and interviewed the manager and staff of that facility, and as of January 3rd, they had about 20 residents already living there. So, and that continues to increase every month. They anticipate a project like that, not unlike the other two that have been developed in Lakeville. There's approximately about a 2-year lease up for those senior projects, so it takes a while, especially for those larger projects. On the commercial industrial side, we had a number of projects in the industrial park, not necessarily all new construction, but QA1, which is an automotive component manufacturer in the industrial park's been there quite a few years, added a 17,000 square foot expansion to the second building that they acquired a couple years ago. I don't have a job number for what translated into new jobs in 2013, but they are a very interesting company. They focus on the high performance racing and enthusiast, automotive enthusiasts, and sell high performance suspension equipment all across the country, and it's their only one and only manufacturing facilities here in Lakeville. BTD is another, and we did a spotlight on them here a year or two ago. They're a company that isn't been in Lakeville all that many years, but they've continued to expand. Last year, as the slide indicated, they added 100 new jobs, and they're a metal fabrication company, and they stamp and fabricate metal components for companies like Toro and John Deere and Polaris and Articat, and they have a lot of welders, sheet metal fabricators, metal stamping equipment and processes, and they now operate in 3 locations in Air Lake, and most recently we were a little concerned last year when Toro announced that they were leaving their leased location in Air Lake on Cedar Avenue, where they've been for 20 plus years, I think, and they built a large new distribution center down in Iowa, and was made more sense for them logistically, I think, in this part of the country. But literally, that space wasn't vacant for more than 30 days, and BTD came in and took it, and They'd indicated when we talked with them last week that they expect to add an additional 50 jobs this year. And overall, they're at about 210 employees right now, and they expect that to double in the next 5 years. So very good story in the industrial park. A couple new businesses that came into existing buildings last year. Midwest Veterinary Supply acquired the former DHY building that had been sitting empty for a number of years right on Holyoke Avenue and County Road 70. That was about a 50 or 60,000 square foot building. They were operating in Burnsville, but they wanted a larger location. We brought them, they identified this building and did a fairly extensive remodeling. It went from a manufacturing type building to a distribution type facility that they operate, and they brought 60 jobs down here and seem to be doing really well. I talked to the owner again this afternoon. They were invited and participated in a manufacturers event last year for the first time. Platinum Code is another interesting company. They came to Lakeville. They acquired a building on County Road 70 that had been sitting empty for a number of years. Geckler companies used to operate out of. They were up in North Dakota, and they brought 20 jobs, and they are a company that is into manufacturing labels and containers for the healthcare industry. They operate and have facilities in other states. They list this as their corporate headquarters, and again, another new company, and I think we've got them lined up to do a spotlight here in the very near future. Mom Brands, that was probably one of the bigger news items business-wise last year. They completed the renovation of their second building out in the Fairfield Business Campus and moved their corporate headquarters down here last September. They now have approximately 275 employees in 2 buildings in Lakeville now that occupy about 163,000 square feet. National Polymers is a plastic manufacturer in the park that did a minor expansion of their office operation last year, and the year before they did a significant warehouse expansion. And Boise Cascade purchased another existing building that happened to be the one right next door. It was the former C.H. Carpenter building on County Road 70. It made a lot of sense, and it allows them to expand their operation. And we talked a little bit about this last week, and I made this presentation to the EDC. In the last 3 years, we've kind of been keeping kind of a running total. Approximately 1 million square feet of existing space in the industrial park has either been purchased or leased. And we're down to the point where there aren't that many large, significant buildings available anymore, which is a good thing, because it's likely, and we expect even sometime later this year, to result in new construction or major expansions of existing buildings. Retail picked up again last year as well. A lot of that was in the smaller retail tenants that went into a number of the shopping centers. This is a new business that located out in South Fork. Fortunately, it was good to see some new businesses come into Heritage Commons last year as well as some of the other multi-tenant commercial buildings. This one, and we've been trying to line up a spotlight with them, and they're still kind of busy now that they've not only got their maintenance facility, but now they're operating a full sales operation down here too. But Poquet Auto located and opened a second location down here last year. They've been up in Golden Valley for a number of years. Very successful used car sales operation and business, and really cleaned up the former Air Lake Ford property. It had been sitting empty and was starting to look kind of tired and in need of some maintenance and upkeep, and they came in and really cleaned it up. Vance Auto Parts, a new store out in Hoppy Marketplace next to Rainbow. Cosmopolitan Orthodontics is building a new office building on Cedar up near Bremer Bank across from Cub. And then McDonald's opened their 4th store in Lakeville over on Kenyon near Brunswick Zone last fall. Unemployment numbers. Lakeville, and these are all numbers from the State Department of Employment and Economic Development, came in at 4.0 in terms of unemployment rate at the December, compared to 6.5 about 4 years earlier. So it's certainly heading in the right direction. I know I got asked the question last year, and unfortunately the state job numbers are not out for the 3rd or 4th quarter of 2013 yet, so I don't have those yet, and otherwise I'd certainly report them, but expecting that they're going to be going up. They've been In 2012, the job numbers were up in the community about 800 jobs, and the year before that was about 600 jobs. So, and they include everything. That includes the retail stores as well as manufacturing businesses and so forth. But when we get those job numbers for the last 2 quarters of 2013, we'll certainly bring them forward. A couple other activities, redevelopment side, we strategically try and take advantage of opportunities to acquire properties, and this was one that became available, vacant foreclosed house on Ipava and County Road 50, and we used federal community development block grants to not only acquire but demolish the house that sets this intersection up a little bit better for future improvements. And then on the marketing initiatives, last year was the first year, and we've got 1 year, and council just approved a joint powers agreement to continue this for another year in the Open to Business program, whereby we bring in expertise not only for financing but business counseling and technical assistance to small businesses through the Open to Business joint powers agreement with the other cities in Dakota County. Had another successful manufacturers event in October. It was the EDC's recommendation. We're going to try and move this event later this year to brackets. It was a recommendation of the EDC, so we'll try a new location this fall. The Deed Job Fair, that was an initiative that actually came out of a recommendation, a request that came out of the manufacturers event in October of the previous year. And last spring we had a very successful job fair with about 400 applicants, and I've just been talking with the Deed and Workforce Investment Board people, and we're looking to hopefully schedule another one maybe in April of this year. Some of our marketing initiatives, we participated in the MinCar Expo and the Real Estate Journal Conference that was held, Industrial Development Conference that was held this fall. And we take advantage of these opportunities to get Lakeville's name and brand out there when we can, and Adam and I both typically staff a booth at these events when we're there. And on an ongoing basis, we continue to meet with our local marketing partners, and just had a meeting last week, and it's the school district and the Chamber of Commerce and Convention Visitors Bureau and Downtown Business Association, and continue to look at opportunities where we can jointly leverage our marketing and opportunities. And finally, this was presented recently to the council, but I just wanted to include the slide, and we'll be coming forward with more information on this, but identifies the 6 strategic priorities that were identified by the EDC and approved by the council for the current 3-year plan for strategic plan for economic development for Lakeville. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Next highlighted item on the agenda is item number 7, adoption of the 2014 legislative policies. And to give the information regarding this agenda item is Administrative Service Manager Alan Kennan.
Thank you, Mayor and members of City Council. Every year, the City Council prepares a list of legislative priorities for consideration by the state legislature during the upcoming year. The 2014 legislative priorities are broken down into 5 categories: municipal revenue and taxation, transportation, housing, economic development, and general legislation. Changes in the 2014 legislative priorities include updated verbiage regarding homestead market value exclusion program. This is just an update of some minor discussions that happened during the 2013 legislative session. Sales tax on local government purchases. As you guys are aware, in 2013 they did pass a legislation for exemption on the sales tax for government purchases. However, we're asking for further clarification on exact exemptions for some of the processes that we do. Relieving congestion at I-35. Staff's been working with Metro Transit and MnDOT with further discussions on options of looking at I-35 and trying to get that on MnDOT's radar. So we've tweaked the verbiage on that to include some of those activities we've been working on. Tax increment financing is just an update of the verbiage on that. City role in affordable housing. We actually added attainable housing to that legislative priority. Residential sprinkler code requirements. At the work session last week, we did strike that from the 2014 legislative priorities. And elected Metropolitan Council is removing the appointment verbiage that we had in that section. New priorities for 2014 include a MnDOT maintenance budget to take full responsibility for maintenance of state-owned infrastructures within the city. Street improvement districts, we're requesting to provide local authority to establish street improvement districts. And a third one is water resources management to improve coordination and regulation of water resources across regulatory authorities. The priorities will be used as a reference for the community, for council, and as well as staff while working with the local, county, and state legislators. And we're not only going to use that during the legislative session, but we'll continue to use that throughout the year. A copy of the legislative priorities will be sent to the governor's office, our U.S. senators, congressmen, state representatives, and senators from the Lakeville area. And for those at home that wish to get a copy of it, a copy is available on the City Council's webpage on our city's website at www.lakevillemn.gov. So with that, staff is available for any questions.
Item number 7 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Well, those were the highlighted items presented to the council at their February 3rd, 2014 meeting. If you have any questions or comments regarding these agenda items, please feel free to call City Hall. The number is 952-985-4400. Thanks for watching this edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up. Frozen ice in cube form does not possess a dangerous threat when in a glass. But put that same frozen ice on a street or as a coating of snow on a highway, and it does possess a real danger. In Minnesota in 2012, there was an average of 189 crashes per day. Don't let snow and ice-coated roads give you the slip. Slow down when driving this winter.